Welcome to the Chronicles of a Cheating Wife channel. A new story every day. Don't forget to subscribe. My name is James. Were it not for a late-night indulgence, I would have remained completely unaware of the peril looming over me. I had just acquired the latest installment of Dan Moore's Meridian's shadow science fiction series, titled Nixie's Rise. While my wife likely assumed I had retired for the night, I found myself engrossed in the book, unable to tear myself away. Typically, I retire to bed early, around 10 p.m., while my wife enjoys staying up to catch the late-night TV programs. Our living room, where the television resides, is situated on the ground floor, whereas our bedroom occupies the second floor at the back of the house. This spatial arrangement often results in minimal auditory overlap between us. At 11:30, the ringing of the phone jolted me from my literary immersion. Reacting instinctively, I reached for the receiver, only to be caught off guard by the conversation unfolding on the other end. Melissa, my wife, spoke in hushed tones, almost conspiratorially, with a man whose voice remained unfamiliar to me. Yes, he's out cold, completely oblivious. We can speak freely. Well, soon enough, he'll be truly out of the picture, won't he? Absolutely, David. I just need to ensure the new insurance policy I took out on him kicks in fully before his accident. How much coverage did you manage to get this time? Just over $1.8 million. Combined with his investments and patents, will be set for life. Let's be careful not to raise any suspicion. We can't afford to let this opportunity slip away. Don't worry. In about 6 weeks, he's planning a cross-country flight to visit his parents. You know how it goes. The plane will crash, and he'll be gone with it. At that moment, I discreetly returned the phone to its cradle and hurriedly climbed into bed. I didn't want Melissa to suspect that I overheard her conversation. The revelation shook me to the core. I thought our marriage was solid. Sure, things had slowed down in the bedroom after 20 years, but I never imagined they had deteriorated to this extent. I feigned sleep until I was sure Melissa had drifted off, then silently rose from bed and retrieved my pistol from the nightstand. Downstairs in the basement, where my bullet reloading equipment was stationed, I meticulously refilled the pistol's magazine with empty shell casings. These casings, however, weren't loaded with gunpowder. Instead, I filled them with an abrasive substance used for cleaning shell casings in my vibratory cleaner. The weight of the cartridges remained indistinguishable from fully loaded ones to the touch. Reloading the pistol with these dud rounds, I returned to the bedroom after flushing the toilet to create the illusion of having just used it. In the morning, I prepared to leave for my office, situated about 5 miles away from our home. I informed Melissa that an early meeting awaited me and that I'd grab a quick breakfast en route. Given the flexibility of owning my consulting firm, rescheduling appointments for a day or two posed no difficulty. My initial action was to contact Lewis, an old college friend who operated a detective and security business roughly 30 miles from my office. I requested his presence, along with his anti-bugging equipment, explaining it was a confidential matter unsuitable for discussion over the phone. Familiar with my previous work for segments of the Department of Defense, Lewis accepted my request and agreed to arrive within the hour. While awaiting Lewis's arrival, I meticulously combed through my office for any signs of surveillance devices, but came up empty-handed. He appeared roughly 40 minutes later, promptly placing a small tape recorder on my desk and activating it. The ensuing cacophony of hisses, chirps, warbles, and wails filled the room as he wielded a peculiar-looking gadget, scanning my phone and its lines. After completing his initial sweep, he silenced the noise and repeated the process. Silently, he gestured for us to step outside before divulging his findings in the car. James, upon initial inspection, I can confirm 3 bugs in your office. They're of high quality, activated only by sound or phone usage. These aren't your run-of-the-mill amateur devices. They're sophisticated. Are you serious? I thought I'd scored the place for bugs and found nothing suspicious. It's not uncommon. Whoever installed these is skilled. They activate only when necessary. My suspicion is they're concealed in your false ceiling, within the phone itself, or possibly in the outside junction box. My advice: don't remove them. It could tip off the perpetrators, leading to unpredictable consequences. Now, tell me why you suspected foul play. And so, I recounted the tale to him. Could you inform your wife about scheduling a repaint for the office next week? If she's behind this, they'll likely want to remove the bugs beforehand to prevent damage during painting. Yeah, I can manage that. But in the meantime, what's my next move? The simplest solution is to borrow the CD player and play your favorite music while you work. Inside, there are specialized transmitters emitting white noise on the same frequencies the bugs operate on. Plus, the player's computer includes a basic frequency spectrum analyzer. Even if their bugs attempt spread spectrum transmissions, this will drown them out with a signal much stronger. If questioned about the new player, just mention it helps you focus on problem solving with some soothing tunes. Now what about your home? We continue discussing plans, and I mentioned Melissa's regular absences for her book club on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday evenings. We'll outfit your house with top-of-the-line bugs. Some utilize the walls themselves as microphone diaphragms, while others discreetly attach to the phone line, minimizing detection by your wife's friends or fiends unless they've performed a thorough phone line sweep. These are a generation ahead of the old loop extenders from the past. While we handle that, a trusted friend of mine will shadow and document your wife's activities. We'll practically turn her car into a police bait car, equipped with video, audio, and GPS tracking. Although we won't implement remote shutdown capabilities, we'll ensure the car remains electrically silent when parked or idling, unless there are 2 or more occupants present. Now regarding your plane's security, primarily just the airport personnel. We'll address that. Prepare for a surprise FAA inspection on both the airframe and engine. Simultaneously, we'll install surveillance to monitor any alterations to your aircraft. Utilizing third-generation image intensifiers will ensure covert monitoring without infrared detection. By the time you're ready to depart, we'll have comprehensive knowledge of any changes made, ensuring they won't go unnoticed. With Lewis's departure, arrangements were made for the painters to refurbish my office. Returning to my workspace, I switched on the CD player in an attempt to focus on work, but my mind remained preoccupied with the recent revelations. I contacted my existing clients to inform them of a temporary suspension of operations due to office remodeling, which they thankfully understood. My secretary was delighted to learn she'd have a paid week off while the painters worked their magic. During dinner that evening, I broached the subject of office repainting to Melissa. I've grown weary of the office colors, so I've arranged for a painting crew to come in next week and give it a fresh look. I'll be working out of the den in the meantime. Perhaps we can enjoy some quality time together, I suggested. Oh, I wish you'd mentioned this earlier, James. I have commitments next week that'll keep me out of the house almost every day. People are relying on me, Melissa lamented. No doubt they were. That day, I had acquired a disposable phone for covert communications, feeling increasingly uneasy with Melissa's presence nearby. I used to cherish her company, but now it felt fraught with tension, unsure if she and her accomplice would accelerate their plans for my demise. The following week dragged on agonizingly. Midway through the painting, my friend Lewis arranged a discreet lunch meeting. Seated at a secluded table, he waited until the waitress was out of earshot before speaking. James, I'm growing increasingly concerned. The bugs above your false ceiling are manufactured by a government-controlled firm just outside Moscow. These are state-of-the-art Russian units. Whoever orchestrated this operation has connections that raise red flags. We need to tread cautiously. While the Russian origin doesn't necessarily implicate the Russian government, it indicates the involvement of someone with ties to Russia or a government agency here. Who have you recently antagonized? Well, the only entity that comes to mind is a small firm that supplied devices to our government. I was tasked with reviewing one of their designs to ensure it met specifications. On paper, it seemed adequate, but the circuit board layout would have made the device easily detectable. I flagged this issue and closed the investigation about 9 months ago. Apart from that, I can't think of anyone who would bear a grudge against me. Where is this company located, James? What's their name? They're based in Smithton. The company is called Rettel Incorporated. Oops, I'm acquainted with some individuals at that firm. They specialize in manufacturing bugs for the FBI. When Minock ceased production of bugging equipment, Rettel essentially picked up where Minock left off, leveraging one of Minock's designs. Their primary liaison with the FBI is a former agent named Kevin Green. From what I gather, he was deemed too unpredictable for the agency, prone to excessive force in various situations. They had to let him go, but given his seniority, he received a sort of golden parachute. He's reputed to be quite formidable and highly intelligent. It appears we're dealing with another seasoned professional here. As part of our inspection of your plane's airframe and engine, I'll have a metallurgical expert examine critical welds to check for any coatings of corrosive substances. The alias my wife mentioned was David. That might rule out Mr. Green. Not necessarily James. He wouldn't use his real name or address. A few nights later, my wife and I sat down for supper. I received some unsettling news today. Honey, I began. The FAA is conducting a surprise inspection on my plane. They're practically dismantling it for a thorough examination. They'll be checking the airframe's integrity, ensuring the engine has been properly maintained, and verifying it's equipped as per the plane's registration. I won't be able to use the plane for the next week. It's been sealed off in the hangar until they're finished. Will this affect your trip to see your folks? She inquired. Not entirely, but I'm always cautious during the first few hours of flight after such an extensive inspection. There's always a chance of overlooked bolts or misadjustments. I'll need to fly it a bit before the trip, I explained. That's a relief. I know how much you've been anticipating the visit, she said with a smile. I understood her underlying concern, the possibility that the trip cancellation might thwart any plans for my accident. Dining with my wife had become less about enjoyment and more about vigilant observation, watching for any subtle cues or changes in her behavior, ensuring she remained unaware of my suspicions. It had become akin to navigating oral exams for one of my clitis. A week later, Lewis provided an update on the bugs installed in our house, revealing some concerning findings. My wife and her acquaintance, David, had been quite intimate in our home. It dawned on me why she had sent me on errands to fetch obscure cooking ingredients multiple times the previous week. As the time for the trip approached, the inspection of the plane revealed no anomalies. Everything appeared in order. While packing my suitcase, my wife handed me an elaborately wrapped package. Please take this with you, honey. It's a gift for your folks. I won't be there to see them, but I want them to know I'm thinking of them, she said sweetly. Of course, dear, I replied, though my thoughts were elsewhere. I couldn't shake the suspicion that the package was the explosive device intended to end my life. Upon leaving home, I ran to vows with Lewis at his office. He had arranged for a nearby veterinarian to assist in x-raying suspicious objects, such as the package for my parents. At Lewis' office, I was introduced to Thomas Kelly, a bomb expert from the BATF. James, meet Thomas Kelly. Thomas, this is James, Lewis said, facilitating the introduction. Thomas works for the BATF and specializes in bomb disposal. I believe we may require his expertise and assistance. We handled the package with care, wearing rubber gloves to ensure any prints belonged to my wife and me. I highly doubted her friend David had left any prints on it. The X-ray images revealed a disturbing array of components. A barometric switch, electronics, switches, a battery, wires, and what appeared to be a combination of a claymore mine and a thermite incendiary. It was a formidable device. Charlie, the bomb expert, spoke up. James, this is a relatively sophisticated bomb. It seems designed to detonate either when the box is opened or during a descent from altitude. This would ensure the explosion occurs either at the end of your trip or during a refueling stop. We need to confiscate and defuse it immediately. Whoever assembled this knew what they were doing, Lewis added. We suspect Kevin Green may be behind this, but we lack concrete evidence, I said grimly. Dan, I've crossed paths with him on bombing cases. He's as skilled with bombs as I am. And he's dangerous, Charlie replied. Yeah, Charlie, that's what I've been thinking. James, proceed with your flight as planned. We'll handle this from here. We'll need court orders for the taps we've placed to monitor their communications once they realize you haven't had your accident. Suddenly, an idea struck me. What if we report an explosion over the Rocky Mountains, but without precise coordinates? It would prompt them to talk and potentially delay any plans. Insurance won't pay out without proof of death. I even know of a location in that area where they might believe I've been taken, China Lake. They regarded me with bewilderment as if I'd sprouted two heads. You know that might just work, Lewis conceded. We won't mention anything about a mid-air explosion to avoid triggering a search by the Civil Air Patrol. Instead, we'll arrange for your isolation. I'll coordinate with a contact at the Department of Defense. They should be able to secure an isolated airstrip and empty hangar space for you to lay low. We'll discreetly inform your family to act concerned, but assure them you're safe. Let's suggest China Lake, I urge. It's remote, and I have connections there. And please, make sure my family knows I'm safe but engaged in government work. Warn them not to disclose anything to Melissa. Agreed, let's proceed, Charlie confirmed. My flight proceeded without incident. I had informed my wife I'd call upon landing, but intentionally left my regular cell phone at home to avoid revealing my location. Arriving at China Lake, where my plane was to vanish, went smoothly. Thanks to my prior work with the directed energy weapons testing facility, I had discreet contacts who could arrange lodging and access to the mess hall. It promised to be a more relaxing experience than dining at home had been lately. David, I haven't heard anything from James. Should I be worried? What if something went wrong? Melissa's voice trembled with anxiety. Don't panic, Melissa. It's too early to jump to conclusions, especially if the device went off in an uninhabited area. Let's assume everything is fine for now. Wait until around 10 tonight, then call his parents to express your love and concern. Pretend James was too occupied to call you. It'll sound natural, but don't overdo it. Keep it low-key and we'll be fine, David reassured her. Would you come over tonight? I feel so alone, Melissa pleaded. I'm sorry, but it's risky. The neighbors know James left for the West Coast. It's best not to raise any suspicions by being seen together for a while. However, I'd love the opportunity to explore James' computer at some point. It would be intriguing to see his thought process. Now I need to hang up so you can hear from him when he lands okay, David responded. Okay, David. I love you, Melissa said softly before hanging up. As the evening wore on without a call from James, Melissa's anxiety reached its peak. By 10 o'clock, she was on the verge of bursting. With trembling hands, she dialed James' parents. Hello, Mom. Can I please speak to James? I think he may have forgotten to call me, Melissa pleaded. Hi, Melissa. I'm sorry, but James hasn't arrived yet. What time did he leave your place? James' mom inquired. He left around 9 this morning, so he should have been there by now, Melissa replied, her voice strained with worry. We haven't heard anything from him. It's possible he's made some changes to his plans and decided to visit some old college friends. You know he has friends in Nevada. Don't worry too much, Melissa. James knows how to look after himself, James' mom reassured her. Relieved by her words, Melissa thanked her and hung up, though her concern for James lingered in her mind. Melissa found herself thrust into an unfamiliar and stressful situation, seeking solace in David's repeated assurances that everything would ultimately be all right. Despite her persistent efforts, her inquiries to James' parents yielded no new information, and they appeared oddly unperturbed by his absence. Recognizing Melissa's increasing reliance on him, David gently urged her to refrain from further contact, wary of drawing unwanted attention. Frustrated by the lack of progress, Melissa took matters into her own hands by officially filing a missing persons report. Seeking guidance at the airport, she was met with disheartening news. Authorities were reluctant to initiate a search for a private pilot without evidence of a downed plane. Without such proof, her efforts to locate James seemed futile, and her anxiety continued to mount. Meanwhile, James found himself enjoying the comforts of the officers' club at the base. Having collaborated with some of the China Lake staff on specialized test projects involving directed microwave-pulsed energy weapons, he felt a sense of security in familiar surroundings. Situated far from populated areas, the base boasted double fences and round-the-clock patrols, providing James with a level of safety akin to Fort Knox. The quality food and company further eased his stay, and he kept himself occupied by lending a hand with minor tasks, offering his services gratis to stave off boredom. As days passed, Melissa left no stone unturned in her quest to locate James. Despite scouring his address book and reaching out to friends in Nevada and along the West Coast, her efforts proved fruitless. Daily calls to the airport's air traffic control yielded little beyond confirmation of James' disappearance amidst the Rocky Mountains' rugged terrain. Growing increasingly anxious, Melissa found herself on the verge of a breakdown. In a desperate bid for reassurance, she reached out to David, seeking solace amid the uncertainty plaguing her every thought. His parents suspect he might have stopped by to see old college friends in Nevada, but his friend there hasn't heard from him. I'm getting worried. If he's safely landed and the bomb goes off, it won't look like an accident. And if it happens when he's with his government contacts, the FBI and BATF will get involved, making things very dangerous for us. What should we do? Melissa's voice quivered with anxiety. Stay calm, Melissa. Panicking will only make things worse. Assume everything's fine and stick to the story we've rehearsed. Trust me. It'll be okay, David replied, his tone steady. It's easy for you to say. If this looks like a bombing, I'll be implicated. I don't know if I can handle a real interrogation, Melissa fretted. Keep your composure, Melissa. This plan will work out. By the way, who did you name as the beneficiary on those policies? David inquired. I followed your instructions. They're designated to go to me or that charity you mentioned, Melissa affirmed. Good job. Everything will work out. To ease your nerves, why don't you open that beautiful bottle of wine I brought over? It'll help calm you down, David suggested. Thank you, David. I appreciate you taking care of me like this, Melissa responded gratefully. Kevin Green, also known to Melissa as David, remained unperturbed. If the plane vanished in the mountains without a trace, the insurance payout could be indefinitely delayed, a convenient outcome for him. However, he realized that Melissa posed a potential risk to his plans. She was the sole link that could lead back to him. With his fabricated charity slated to receive the insurance funds in the event of Melissa's demise, he felt secure. His meticulous planning included leaving Melissa the bottle of wine, which contained enough obscure poison to kill 50 people. This particular brand of wine, widely distributed and lacking a tax seal, would render tracing it back to him nearly impossible. Furthermore, he had purchased it several years earlier, ensuring his tracks were well covered. Given the poison's origin in the old HGV arsenal and its rarity, it was unlikely to be detected by the coroner. Kevin Green's scheme was carefully crafted to eliminate any potential threats to his safety. Charles, the BATF agent, listened intently to the tape recording of the phone conversation, which was impeccably clear. One particular detail unsettled him. The mention of the wine didn't align with Kevin Green's typical behavior patterns. This discrepancy raised a red flag in Charles' mind, hinting at a potential anomaly. However, he hesitated to take immediate action that could jeopardize the ongoing investigation. His contemplations were abruptly interrupted by the ringing of his phone. Agent Kelly speaking. Charles answered. Charlie, it's Franklin from our DC lab. We've made a breakthrough with the bomb analysis you sent over. We found a human hair in the box and managed to retrieve half a fingerprint from the inside of one of the pieces of electrical tape. Our perpetrator slipped up. The print matches Kevin Green. We fast-tracked a warrant for his arrest. Franklin informed him. Fantastic news, Franklin. I'll get moving. Hopefully, we can prevent another victim from falling prey to Kevin Green's schemes. Charles responded with determination before ending the call. 20 minutes later, Charlie found himself on Melissa and James' doorstep, ringing the bell urgently. Melissa answered the door, and Charlie wasted no time in presenting his credentials. You don't know me, Melissa, but I'm with the FBI. Agent Smith and a couple of local police officers are with me. We need to talk to you right away. Your life may be in danger, Charlie stated firmly. Melissa, visibly alarmed, ushered them inside. On the coffee table sat the bottle of wine, a glass, and a corkscrew. Have you consumed any of that wine? Charlie inquired urgently. Yes, it's quite good, Melissa began to reply. Call 911. Get an ambulance here immediately. Alert the hospital that this is an emergency, Charlie directed his colleagues. We need to act fast to save this woman's life. Confused and frightened, Melissa questioned, What's happening? A friend of mine gave me this wine, Charlie explained. We know. You know him as David, but we know him as an ex-FBI agent named Kevin Green. We strongly suspect that he left that bottle here with poison in it to ensure you couldn't identify him if things went awry. Trust me, things have gone very wrong. Despite the heroic efforts to save Melissa, they proved futile. The poison she had ingested had no antidote. Tragically, she succumbed to its effects within a matter of hours, unbeknownst to anyone at the time. As for Kevin Green, the evidence from the tape recording and his fingerprints on the wine bottle sealed his fate. He was destined for a lifetime behind bars in a federal supermax prison. Meanwhile, Ed felt confident in his safety. He had meticulously removed his surveillance devices from James' office and dismantled the tap on James' home phone. Convinced that he had covered his tracks thoroughly, he continued with his routine, unaware of any looming threats. However, his sense of security was shattered when his secretary informed him that an unexpected visitor, accompanied by an unfamiliar FBI agent, had arrived to see him. Long time no see, Charlie. What brings you to town? Taking a break or something? Ed greeted him. Or something, Ed. I have something that might interest you, Charlie replied cryptically, handing Ed a copy of a warrant. What's this, Charlie? Some kind of agency prank? Ed questioned, bewildered by the unexpected turn of events. Nope, it's the real deal. We've had you under surveillance for over 2 weeks now. We've got some top-notch audio and video evidence that would make your head spin. You can even watch yourself removing those Russian bugs from James' office. And don't forget the hair and thumbprint you left behind on the bomb tape. Your prints are all over that wine bottle, too. Not to mention the poison we've analyzed. We're itching to know how you managed to get your hands on cutting-edge Russian spy gear and ancient KGB poison. You'll have plenty of time to spill the beans while you're behind bars for the rest of your life. Oh, and by the way, James is doing just fine. The bomb ended up in Washington, D.C. instead of on his plane, thanks to me disarming it. It was a clever design, but it lacked a radiation sensor that would have triggered it during an X-ray. You always were a bit sloppy, Charlie revealed. Ed's expression shifted from one of confidence to that of shock and disbelief. He was promptly taken into custody, and James remained unaware of his fate, except for the fact that he was enjoying the accommodations of Alcatraz of the Rockies, Florence, Haiti, and Aix. Finally back at home, James reflected on how a simple science fiction book had saved his life. If he hadn't been engrossed in Dan Moore's Nixie's Rise, he might very well have met a grim fate. It's remarkable how seemingly inconsequential things can tip the scales between life and death. With a shudder, James contemplated the close call and the profound impact of mere chance on his existence.